to order. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Yetsey.
Here.
Mrs. McCarthy.
Here.
Mrs. Saxon.
Here.
Mrs. Tamiro.
Here.
Mr. Vaca.
Here. Finalization of the agenda. Is there anything to add and or delete?
The agenda is final as presented.
Thank you. So I move right into the superintendent and treasurer report.
Thank you very much, President Baca. We have three quick updates tonight under the superintendent's report. The first of which is an update about our student achievement this year, where we are and what our intervention and enrichment program looks like. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pritt to talk to us a little bit more.
Thank you, Mrs. Casario. So I appreciate the opportunity this evening to speak a little bit about where we are. As all of you know, this is not a typical school year. Last year didn't end as a typical school year. So I think it's important to look and see kind of where the year has started, kind of where we've progressed to, and then talk through some of those unique circumstances and how we're trying to address them moving forward. So I've got a short presentation here. It's only about 8 slides, which we'll move through pretty quickly. And then at the end, obviously, we'll have some time for your questions. So I'm going to enable a screen share here. Hopefully that all goes well. I'll present this with you. So just a couple of those things floating out there, some of those challenges that we're facing. You know, we know that just about a year ago, in-person full-time learning ended in the district in March of 2020. We know that the pandemic required a later start to the school year than what we planned. It actually started about 8 days later than where we had typically expected to be. And that was in large part to make sure that we had buildings ready and classrooms ready, and we had our teachers ready to get that learning started. If you look at just the sheer numbers percentage, you know, you're down in a typical hybrid day at the elementary level, a K through 8, of about 60% over a typical school year. We've gone from 5 days a week to 2 days a week in person. At the high school, it's down about 80%. We've gone from 5 days a week to just the 1 day a week. In addition to that, we've also compressed our school day, and it was done for a number of factors to make sure that we could provide a situation where students were in school and were as safe as they could possibly be. So part of that had to do with eliminating periods of time, so where students might have been gathering in big groups, maybe a study hall or something like that. Those have generally been eliminated as much as possible from our schedule. To do that, we've kind of compressed that student day. And the other challenge that we're facing is that we've got students in these multiple learning formats. So we have some students that are 100% online. We have some students that are in person 2 days a week. We've got students that are in person 1 day a week. So we've got all of these different scenarios that we're working through. So the big question for all of us, I think, is, you know, when the year ended and when the year started this year, where would our students be? And I think that was the first question we wanted to look at and answer. So we know that we've got these challenges coming up, and what's important for us individually is how do we tackle these challenges? So the first piece is by focusing on the data piece that I'm about to dive into with you. We need to make decisions that are informed on data all the time, but particularly now when we're facing a short school year and when we're facing a year to where students are coming back in a spot that typically they probably would not have been. We need to find ways to provide multiple opportunities for our students to demonstrate success. We shouldn't have students who are suffering because of the situation they've been put into through the pandemic. And in a lot of this, we got to think outside the box and be as flexible as we can possibly be, which I think our staff is doing a good job of. So when we did our first round of data assessment, and I'll show you a bigger picture of this here in just a minute, we gave all of our students in grades K through 4 Ames Web assessments. And what we found from there is our biggest gap, our biggest area of concern for our students were those students moving from kindergarten into first grade. So what we found here is that only about 35% of our students were meeting their benchmark at the beginning of fall. About 48% were slightly under where they should have been, and about 47% were significantly under where we wanted them coming into first grade. So that became a focus area for us. The good news is, if we look at our winter benchmark here, you know, we've added 11% at benchmark already this year. So even though we've come back in a modified fashion, even though we're not back full time, we're still seeing a pretty significant improvement over where our students started back in September. And you're going to find that as we move through these grades, K through 4 or 1 through 4, you're going to see a similar thing as we grow across the board. And what's encouraging for me is that while this number has grown, this one has shrunk even more than that 11%. So we're down to about a third of students that are significantly where their benchmark is. I anticipate that as we move throughout the school year with some of the things we put in place, some of the things that we will continue to put in place, that number will get back to a normal number, so that when we start next school year, when they have these students about where they should be. So when I look up my other grade levels, kindergarten, you're going to see a difference here. Do not be worried about this drop off. This is because students are testing with a different set of skills in the January test than they do in the September test. So here we're probably looking at actually just naming of letters. By the time we get here, we're actually talking about foundational literacy skills, letter sound recognition, beginning reading skills. So it's two different assessments that we're comparing there. But where we look and we compare the same assessments, we can see that 11% growth in first grade. We've got about a 6.5% growth in second grade. We look at high tech, it's up about 3%. And again, the difference is just simply numbers here. We've grown significantly in third grade. This number in January is a little misleading at the 57.1. When we ran that first round of assessments, we didn't have all of our assessments completed. So I'm proud to see the 21%. What's really important for me is the fact that we've got almost 80% of graders at the academic center meeting their grade level benchmark already. That's really the critical piece there, more so than the growth piece. And at high tech, you can see that we're seeing similar success. But we recognize that by being shortened last year, we're coming in, we've got some deficits. Those deficits are quickly fixing themselves. Again, even within a system to where we're not seeing our students in person every single day. So I think that's a tribute to the work that is happening on a daily basis, but also the tribute to our teachers and the work that they're doing in those online programs, whether that's 2 days a week, whether it's full 5 days a week. The next piece of data I want to look at is our next piece of data that would have come to us, and that would have been third grade reading data. So the Ohio State test is taken by all third graders twice a year. They take it towards the end of October. They take it again generally in April. This is one that must be taken in person. So our online students, if they're 100% online, actually came to the building to take this assessment in October. State average was a 37% this year. That's not an unusual number. It is down from last year. But the unique thing about the third grade test is it's the only test that we take at the beginning of a year, yet it's still testing end of the year skills. So really, we are looking at the number of students at the beginning of third grade who have the skills mastered for the end of third grade. So that number generally is not as high as it's going to be. District average was a 36% this year. That was down 9% over the 19-20 school year. So a couple things from that piece of data. First is it tells us that our students are coming in a little behind where they typically were. I think that's to be expected. What's encouraging for me is, you'll see that we've got double asterisks here. The encouraging piece for me is that 9% that we were down was actually the lowest percentage in the county. Of the schools and the districts that reported out their scores in our secret curriculum director network, 9% was actually the lowest percentage decline in the county. And you can see those scores in the county went down anywhere from 9% to 27%. In fact, we were the only district that was a single-digit decline over the previous school year. The average decline in the county was just under 16%. So again, I think it goes back to, again, we've got good things in place. I think the instruction at the end of last year, what we could do through the virtual learning, helped keep us in a good place. And I think the way that we've started this school year has kept us in that good place. And what the data told us from this section is we need to focus on that writing section of the assessment. Writing section makes up about 25% of the total value of that assessment. And we had a significant number of students who either didn't write enough to get a good score, or they copied too much from the text. So those are skills that we'll work on over the course of the school year. So again, this kind of puts into perspective for you where we are in relationship to what's happening in other districts. When I talk to other people, coming back, the non-normal school year that we're having is affecting all of our students in all kinds of ways. I think this helps to put into perspective that A, we're not alone, but B, we're in a pretty good shape, all things considered. So what are we doing to make this come to pass? The first thing is we're continuing to progress monitor students K through 8 in Ames and or STAR. So K through 4, we did the training last school year actually before things shut down. So those students have had a fall and winter benchmark. We've since worked with grades 5 through 8. So their first benchmark was actually with the Ames piece in the winter. So we'll have a winter spring on them. They've been benchmarking with STAR all along as they have the last couple of years. We're continuing to provide professional development to staff, and I think that's absolutely critical. So Mr. Hieronymus with the preschool teachers a week or so ago. We've got another PD on one of our online programs tomorrow for some of our teachers. Professional development has stopped in a lot of districts. It's not stopped here. It's a fine line, I think, between continuing to move our staff forward because we need to, and recognizing the challenges that they have going on. So we're trying to provide this professional development that's going to help right now for our students in the classroom. We've implemented an after-school targeted intervention program for students in grades 1 through 3. So previously, this was a third grade only program. And what we have done this year is we've expanded it down to 1 and 2, knowing that we have those needs. We've got about 15 teachers working with about 85 students. So they're working 4 days a week with students after school for about an hour. It is a virtual program. And the nice thing about that actually is it provides us a little more flexibility in our day. So in the past, we might have a student who couldn't make after school because by the time they got home from school, it was, going on 4:30, 5 o'clock. This allows us to actually get students right at the end of the day and also work better with families that say, you know what, I've got an appointment on this day. Teachers are free and flexible to work around with their groups. Generally, those groups are running 5 or 6 students. The older grades, we've got their asynchronous day. We've got our office hours that are set up on those. One that I'm really excited about is that next to last bullet point, which is all of our middle school and our high school admin, along with counselors, are meeting with families and students who are showing struggles right now to find out exactly what those challenges are and how we address them. So as opposed to saying we are doing blank for everybody, we're really trying to work individually with the students to find out what those needs are. The conversation that we have had, and we meet weekly to talk about this with the high school admin, is nothing is off the table. So we're going to have some students that are probably going to be retaking exams. We're going to have students that may potentially be in the buildings on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday being supervised by people because maybe learning from home isn't the best environment for them. So really, we're targeting these individual students and their individual needs because each of them are going to need a different program. A senior who maybe failed a class the first quarter is very different than a freshman who might have done the same type of thing. So we're trying to look at those individually. And the last bullet point on there is just working with staff to provide remediation options for struggling. An easy example I can give for that is we have students that in a typical year would have done a first quarter grade, a second quarter grade, and a midterm exam. This year, we didn't have that midterm exam. So we might have a student who, say, passed the first semester, maybe struggled a little bit and didn't pass that second semester. The easiest way to get that student in credit is to have them take that midterm that they normally would have taken. If they had passed it, they'd have their 2 out of 3 and they'd get the credit for that. So we're just looking at different ways and working with each department to find out what works for them to get those struggling students those credits that they need. All in all, I think the programs themselves and what's being put in place will serve our students well. I've talked to a lot of other people in other districts, and their plan right now is in some other places, we're going to have more students in summer school. That doesn't help our students. We want to get them before they have to get to that point. Before I turn it over to questions, we recognize the other challenge with this is going to be that, in some of these cases, it's going to be an ongoing process. We won't necessarily be able to recover every high school credit during the course of the school year. Some of our students might be an ongoing thing. We may need to look at providing these interventions after school on an ongoing basis. So those are some of the things that we've got in the works. Again, overall, I think we're in a good place based on where potentially we could be. The next step is making sure that we get everybody to where they need to be. So at this point, I'll open it up to the board if there are questions.
Mr. Friend, this is Mrs. McCarthy. You kind of answered the question I was going to ask about ongoing supports for the students. So can you give us a little bit more detail about that? Like how might that look in a quote unquote normal school year?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of different things, and that's a great question. One would be, offering the outside of school tutoring services. So again, we've offered it previously, grade 3. Seems to be successful, 1, 2, 3. I think that's something we look forward going ahead. Second piece of that we're doing for all of our schedules for next school year, and it was really meant to be designed for this school year, and again, we shoot at school day, is actually building in an intervention program at every grade level for every student every day. So the student doesn't need to come out of a recess time at an elementary level, or doesn't need to come out necessarily of a special time at a middle school level. but providing those interventions that students might need as a part of their regular school day. And I think that will be the significant change that you see next year across our buildings. Some of our students are going to need that time for intervention. Some of them are going to need it for enrichment. So it's about, again, targeting what that specific student needs and not making it in lieu of something else. And I think that's the challenge that we've had in the past with some of our programs, even if it's a Title I program, if it's something else, is you feel like you're always pulling a student from something to be able to do that. Our goal is not to pull them from something, and just build that as a natural part of their schedule.
Thank you. I appreciate that goal too.
Absolutely.
So Mr. Pritt, our online students, are they also taking advantage of these interventions, and how does that look for their day versus the students that are in school?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Mr. Baca. So our after school, our 1 through 3, we do have students that are both in person and completely online taking advantage of those programs. So that's an excellent thing for us. As far as we get into our older programs, it's the same type of thing. So these meetings are being held with the students struggling regardless of what their format is. Those are happening now through Zoom with parents, guidance counselor, principal, and they will also have the opportunity. At that point, we start looking in your older grades. Maybe an APEX program works. Maybe it's something that we look at, bringing a student back into the building for. Again, there's really nothing off the table right now because these are unusual times and we've got to think outside the box. So we do have online and in-person students taking advantage of all the programs that we're currently running.
Thank you. I absolutely appreciate the fact that we're treating each individual student based on their needs and not taking a cookie cutter collective approach to it. So I think our students will benefit in the long run. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Mr. Pritt, it's me again. I have another question. I'm just curious for parents or families who have a child that they deem is struggling academically, or maybe it's not necessarily academically, but it's showing up in their academics, and they haven't been contacted yet by an administrator or a counselor. What would they do? Is your advice for them?
No, I think that's a great question. So as I said, they're working through those processes this week. What I would encourage that parent to do is reach out to the teacher and to the administrator of the building as well. We're doing a lot of this based on, the specific data. So I had a conversation with the parent this morning. 3rd grade reading score wasn't very good. We pulled up the Ames Web data and the student is at benchmark everywhere they're supposed to be. So that's a student probably that we're going to be looking to once we get through this first round of students that have kind of jumped out at us. Same with our 1st through 3rd graders. We have actually worked through 2 or 3 different groups of times to get those students that we need. So we target our individuals the first time that maybe weren't making progress. They were low in the fall. They were low in our next round of winter testing. That kind of became our first group. And then we're working through kind of in a priority situation, if that makes sense. But absolutely, any parent that has a concern about student progress needs to be reaching out to administration and to teachers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One last question for myself. The intervention going 1st through 3rd grade. I anticipate that we'll see less intervention when we return to the 3rd grade mandate that came down from the state. Are we going to keep that 1st and 2nd grade component once we move out of COVID and take advantage of that intervention that's now been put in place?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to grow the program. With any intervention, the job of an intervention program is kind of work yourself out of business, which is what we're hoping to do. We've intervened, but the really important critical piece of that is putting in place the core curriculum. And we've really done a much better job of that over the last 2 years as we've moved into the units of study in phonics, the units of study in writing, the units of study in reading that's coming along. So I would anticipate seeing that number decrease. I think that's why when we look at that decrease that we had on that 3rd grade testing, we saw less of a decrease in some of these other surrounding districts, is the fact that we're starting to see the benefits of those programs that we put in place over the last 2 years starting to show through. So, but yes, I hope to have those still in 1st and 2nd grade, and I hope we don't need them for long.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We're going to go a little bit out of order. I know that we are excited to share with the board some of our live streaming highlights, which has truly come as a result of the world we're currently living in. But with us, and they have to run shortly to a game, are Dave Grudzinski and Carl Rashung. And Paul Hieronymus is going to kick them off to talk a little bit about what those two have been up to this year in regard to some live streaming. Mr. Hieronymus.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to be very brief because the people who did all the work are going to be the ones that are going to share the most. But we're going to go ahead and just quickly show you some stats of how things have been going with our live streaming. You know, our goal with this was just to be able to make it something viewable, but this group has really taken it up a notch and really made it an amazing thing. So if you have not had a chance to catch any of our live streams, you should now, because there's some amazing stuff that's going on here. But just quickly, looking at our statistics that we have from our session so far, board members, you have a handout that's available for you for this. But we've had quite a few viewers. About 14,000 people have hit our streams, and they've come from all over the country, as well as from 5 other countries. We actually looked up what countries they came from, and there was like somebody from India, 2 provinces of the Philippines. Just some amazing stuff that we're seeing taking place for people watching our streams. But you could actually, as I scroll down here a little bit, even see how many of the peak shows that the highest amount of people we had at one time connecting to those streams, and then how many of those people were views. Now, obviously, a view would be if I connected and connected again, that would count as 2, but still a very exciting amount of numbers here that we could see of all of our games that are listed here. And there's more stats on the back for the board's handouts to kind of get a snapshot of that. But really, I could share these numbers and that's all well and good, but it's kind of a whole lot more exciting if we can actually show you a little bit of a snapshot of what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and cue that up here real quick and make sure I've got my computer sound turned on. And we'll go ahead and just take a quick snapshot of what that looks like live.
Out to Nate Diaz on the left wing. Now Freeman launches the 3 from the corner, and it's good! Adam Freeman buries the 3 from the corner to give the Rangers the lead right back. The other way quickly are the Rangers. Newman to Farrago. Farrago to McIntyre. Wide open 3, and he got it. Colin McIntyre's first basket of the game is a big one. Raggai working against Diaz into the lane. Up with the shot. No good. Rebound Masterson. Masterson down the floor to Newman. Newman against Ellington. Shot up and good. Down the floor it goes as R.J. Schneider with the block. 7, 6, 5. R.J.'s got to do something. Gets it to Dom. Dom to Noah Gronczynski at the buzzer. Good.
Good. Feels good to get a win at home.
Grace Kingery launches the long 3 and nails it. Now Grace will drive. Nice pass inside to Kat Kravda. Up at the shot. Good. And she was fouled. Inbound to Baker. Baker drive right down the lane. Up at the right hand and good. Rosado for 3. Got it. Randy Rosado. She kicks it to Peyton Palcisco. Left wing. She got it. The other way comes Grace Kingery. The freshman phenom sights the 3. Got it. Kingery launches the long 3. Got it. Here comes Brooke Lime. 3's in the air. Good. It's Maddie Rosado, top of the key. Shot is up. It's good. Maddie Rosado ties the game with a 3. Back out to Dalen Baker, right wing. She finds Brinley Kerr underneath. Left-handed layup is good.
And so this is live, right? You're here and you are basically the eyes for the people who are at home watching. And so do you think about that? Like, what does Mr. Rochon tell you to do when you're working the camera? What should you be looking at?
I should be looking at the players and who has the ball, and it's kind of, and sometimes it's kind of hard to look at the focus at the screen, but a lot of times it's getting pretty easy. I think I'm getting the hang of it.
So how do you not get motivated after seeing that? What a great stuff that we've had coming from them. And I'm so happy that Mr. Rochon and Mr. Gronczynski are able to be with us here for this period of time, because they have really taken just, the fact of just getting the streaming going, but then taking it up to that next level where it's our kids are involved, our athletes are involved. Just a great, powerful piece that's going on with it. So I would just want to give them a second to shout out anything they'd like to say as well, real quick.
I appreciate it for having us here, by the way. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of your night. It really wouldn't be possible, honestly, without Mr. Gronczynski right here next to me. He has been lights out. And this is all volunteer, by the way. He just does it for the love of being a part of not only his kids' lives, but, just his peers, his son's peers, boys, girls. And then we're getting student volunteers that are coming in every week. More kids are showing more interest in helping with the live stream, which is creating field opportunities for a possible career path later on. And this is really something that we'd love to see grow. I know with COVID, it's been very difficult to really do any type of broadcast journalism class this year. Obviously, given the space, given the format in which we're teaching and learning, there's a lot of roadblocks, but it's also opened up a lot of windows of opportunity. And we're very thankful for Boxcast and T-Mobile for providing us these tools, because without it, I don't know if we'd have a live stream. But really, just what we kind of want to just quickly talk about real quick is how we want to integrate hopefully this live stream service into our broadcast journalism program next year, and hopefully create it into some sort of organization or even department that's student run. There's been a huge push of project-based learning in the last couple of years. I volunteered to take it upon myself to be a part of the project-based learning professional development course again this year. I love it. I'm totally bought into that. And, that I'm actually making my project-based learning unit based on this particular program itself. The driving question is basically what components are needed in order to run, run and maintain, a broadcast, a service, and really just getting the kids to create that product for not just their peers to see, but for the community and beyond. As you can see, we're going international. And this is just with a few student volunteers, parent volunteers, and there's been a lot of excitement around the community just around this, and even beyond our community. Mr. Grudzinski has been getting multiple emails from parents and staff and administration from other schools, just showing their appreciation for what we've done so far. And we want to continue. We want to see this to continue to grow. We'd like to create a department again that's student run, where we're able to oversee what they do. We'd like to see them create news stories for the website. We'd like to see them create player profiles and biographies of their peers, which is going to be promoting our student body in a positive way. It's going to increase that positive student culture that we've been working so hard for. And with the rapid growth of this community, I feel that this is the perfect time and the perfect fit to really get our kids involved and give them a sense of pride of being a part of this growth. I've talked to other people that are owners or small business owners in the district, and they want to be a part of this. They want to help fund it. And I think that creates an even more of a window of opportunity for us to gain more funding and financial support, not just for our kids, but for our district as a whole. I just talked to Ian Scholl's father the other day over the weekend. He's a junior on the basketball team. He owns a nursery in Olmsted Falls, and he says, "Where do I sign up?" He wants to be a part of this. He goes, "Let me know, and I will have the check sent to the district." I mean, he's that excited about it. So again, and this is great for argumentative writing for our kids. There's so many different genres of writing that we can add into this. Being an English teacher, this obviously excites me. So sorry for my nerdiness, but this again, it just builds upon the skills that the kids already have, and again, gives them an opportunity to kind of feel out what they would like to do for the rest of their lives. While also, if they decide to go down this path, they already have something to put on their resume that's going to be pretty impressive to schools and even internship opportunities. So I really do think the sky's the limit, and we have an opportunity to be at the forefront of this innovation as a district. I don't know if you want to say anything.
No, I just wanted to say, like, from the beginning, we wanted to make this something special, for anybody who was involved, and number one, for the kids, not just the players, but the kids who help us with the scoreboard and the cameras, and helping us, helping me, like we have spotters, helping me look for numbers and things, because things happen fast, and to just give them that real life experience, And I also like to use the live streams as an opportunity for the district to, like today we're talking, my halftime interview was Ron Boyner, who runs the NRTBA. We've had Dave Baker, the president of the Sports Schools. It's an avenue for us to to get the word out about certain things. When there's a timeout, I will, I'm always like, like I've been talking about the College Credit Plus that's coming up tomorrow. It's like a reminder, for parents or anybody who's listening, whatever's out there, the band fundraiser. I've been mentioning that a lot. It's just, it's an avenue that the district, I think, can use in so many ways. And the best part about it is the number one thing on the list is student benefit.
Most definitely. And, long term, what we're really envisioning here is, again, kind of not just like a sports information department where we're creating new stories and creating live streams. We want it to be all extracurriculars. So this isn't just sports driven. This is the arts. I mean, we have so many talented students in our district. Who cares if they're not a part of an athletic function? They're doing something creative that's expressing themselves, and we want to showcase those talents. And, those kids deserve to be showcased. They deserve to feel proud about what they do and how they represent their school and their community. And again, we feel that this is an avenue to do that. We're just doing it in the sports realm as of right now. But again, we're starting small and we want it to grow. And we really feel that this is going to grow rapidly, and we just got to keep pushing it.
Well, thank you so much for both of you being a part of our board meeting here today. And we want to have a chance to make sure you guys can get back because we have a game coming up here in a minute.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board real quick before we have to let our two celebrities go?
I just want to say thank you so much for your passion and your commitment to our students and our school district. You can really tell how proud you are to be Rangers, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your support.
Your energy and enthusiasm is contagious. So I feel bad for everyone else who has to follow you during this meeting.
We just want them to be a part of the ride. That's all.
We appreciate it. It looked like, Mr. Grzinski, it looked like you were interviewing a student. So can you tell us a little bit more about that process and the students that you're using to help with videotaping and stuff?
Well, and they're all volunteers, and Mr. Oshang put together a sign-up sheet, and the kids signed up. And again, the kids are the stars, and so at halftime when we don't have like a more formal guest, the kids are the ones that we talk to, and why are you interested in doing this? And then we find out about some of their other interests. And Wyatt was a great example. He was such a great interview because we talked about the live streams, but then we found out the kid is like a pinball machine fanatic, and he knows so much about video games, and he's got like Chuck E. Cheese down in his basement. He has all these games and things, And so, and even the other day, which I thought was the newsman in me takes over, because when I hear a good story, I want to tell it. And so we had one of the freshman basketball players for the first time helping with the girls game, doing the camera. And I'm like, I really need you to be the halftime interview, because one, I want to talk to you about why you're helping us, but also I think the team that has been affected the most by COVID this year has been the freshman boys basketball team. I mean, they've suffered through the most shutdowns, the coaches quarantine right now. There's a lot going on there. And so there was another, we hadn't heard from them yet. And so we talked to them. And then we also, and you saw that quick clip of Nate Theus, when we have a big win and we have a star player, we want to talk to him after the game. We bring him up. And it's so funny because the first couple of times we did it, the players were so shocked. They're like, because we sent one of the kids down there to go get him. We're like, go get us Nate, and they're like looking around, and then I got to give them this. I'm like, come on up. Don't go into the locker room yet. And so again, it's all about the kids, the kids who are helping us. We want to put them on camera. And then we didn't even show you Ashley Duncan, who did our sideline report one game. She wants to be in front of the camera. And so we had a separate meeting with her on a Monday before a game, and we talked it through, like, here are some of the storylines you can talk about, and here's how you can put this together. And and she did it, and she did a great job. And so that's what we're looking for here. We want the kids to really just have an opportunity to shine. And if it's something that they want to do, give them the opportunity to do it. And try to get them 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of anybody when they go off to college, and they head off to the, if they want to go to the radio station, the TV station, the newspaper, whatever it is, or that first marketing class they go to. We want our kids to feel like they have a leg up on the competition.
And we trust these kids so much right now. We actually have 2 freshmen that are working the live stream right now on their own. And one is Wyatt. He has developed his skills with the camera and working it both zooming in, panning back and forth, following the ball. If any of you guys know Wyatt, you'll understand how inspiring he really is. He comes in with such a great energy and enthusiasm to each game he shows up, and he wants to work camera, and he gets better each and every game. I just see a tremendous difference from the first time he showed up until now, to the point where I trust him to do it on his own. I mean, and that's what it's all about. It's giving our kids that responsibility, that ownership, to create that public product that we can be so proud of them for.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Your excitement's amazing. I want to thank you for the fact that through this COVID, you're an example of the positives that have come out of this live streaming and the opportunity through project-based and real-life application to the benefit of our students, seeing the excitement in both of you, seeing the excitement in the students. Anything that we can do to help support this moving forward, please know that you have our support. And gentlemen, amazing, amazing job. And thank you very much.
Well done.
We'll be in touch. Sky's the limit. Appreciate everybody.
Thank you both.
Thanks. Have a
Good
good one.
luck tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if you have not checked out one of the games, they are pretty cool. Wyatt is a great story. I know Mrs. Vance can tell you a lot more about Wyatt and his family, but definitely just a great example of getting kids involved in something that they might not otherwise have the opportunity to be a part of here in our schools. So super excited and proud of all that they have done and look forward to what they will do in the future.
So how do we lack on Mr. Brzezinski to make sure he doesn't go anywhere?
I think his kids are here for a little bit longer.
Okay, good.
The final report tonight under the superintendent's report is just a look at the 2021-2022 school calendar that we are looking to approve. And that we are going to immediately begin planning for the 22-23 calendar so we can get back on that 2-year ahead schedule for our community as quickly as possible. Obviously, this was slated to happen last March, and COVID really set back some of our grand plans. So, Mr. Pratt, I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk a little bit about next year's calendar.
I appreciate it. I will try to make calendar as exciting as that last presentation, although I'm not sure I'm equipped to do so.
Bring the enthusiasm, Mr.
Block.
So we do have a draft calendar that we'd like to recommend to you for approval at the next meeting. I'm just going to walk you through some of the highlights and what that looks like. If you're not familiar or you don't remember the process because we did not approve one last year with COVID and everything, the way this generally comes about is we begin with 4 or 5 drafts at our district leadership team, our DLT. From there, we talk a little bit about what we'd like to see in a calendar. Those drafts go back to buildings through their BLTs, kind of give feedback, bring it back to DLTs, and then we eventually get it narrowed down to 1 or 2 options that we think are feasible, and then look to see what we can implement. So the draft that we're recommending is draft 3. It's a 174 student day calendar, which generally is about where we are, typically 174 to 176 student days, depending on a year. We'd look to start on the 19th of August. That is the Thursday that school would have started on this year if it had been a normal school year. I think this year it was actually the 20th. It's the 19th based on how things shake out. One of the exciting things that came through that request from DLT was to add an additional professional day before school starts. So typically we would have 2. This coming year, we'd actually have 3. And that came out of a request from specifically NRAC 3-4, who's talked about with all the programs that we've implemented in the last couple of years, that would provide us a full day to do PD on those things. So we do have that built into the schedule. September is pretty straightforward with the holiday. October is pretty straightforward. This would be NEOEA day. We've got staff that generally does some professional development there, so no real changes. November, the first year, this year was the first year that we did back-to-back professional days. So November 2nd is election day. We typically, because we do have voting here at the Academic Center, have had that as a professional day. And then we've actually backed that up with another one the day before. So what that allowed us to do this year is we are able to start professional development on a topic on Monday, do a full day, and then another half day the next day. So it really provides us some extended professional development that most districts don't have in their calendar. 24th, 25th, 26th for Thanksgiving is actual contractual. A lot of discussion around what happens here with Christmas. So Christmas is on the 25th, which is a Saturday in the upcoming school year. There was a building or two who said, can we make this 2 weeks worth of break? There were other buildings that said, I would trade those 2 weeks worth of break if we could have that on the back end. Ultimately, the reason we fell out here has to do with getting as many instruction days as we can before students start assessments later in April and May. And I'll talk about that when we get there. This January 10th date is a records day. That's actually a contractual day. The contract says it'll be a day at the end of the first semester for grades and PD. This one in February is another one of those for people that are on trimester schedules. Spring break, as has the last couple of years, will make an appearance at the end of March, very beginning of April. Long weekend for where Easter would be. So this is Good Friday. This would be Easter Monday. Moving into May, we have the day built into the calendar in case we get one of those crazy winters like we had a couple of years ago to where we had to make up some time. And then ultimately, students would end on the 26th of May, staff on the 27th of May. So we'll actually get them out before the holiday there in May. So these 2 days, if we had kept those in the schedule, then that really makes for some weirdness here at the end because it pushes staff and students into just having a day in May, at the very end of the May, or the first day of June. But really the other piece when we look at this is what makes sense for students. So we know that our students are going to be in May taking AP exams. I feel it's our obligation to give those students the best opportunities they can possibly have to do well on those because we're going to have, colleges determine whether or not they take students based on how they're doing there, or earning of college credit based on how they're doing on those exams. We have third graders that have to pass a third grade spring test or the equivalent in order to be fourth graders. And I think when we start looking at, do we trade a day here? Do we trade a day there? Ultimately, we have to do what's best for students. And I think it's easier to keep them engaged the beginning part of the year than it is after some of those testing things. That becomes time that's not quite as focused for our students. So if we can give them an extra week, at the beginning of the year, if we can give them a couple extra days towards the beginning of the year, and give them 7 or 8 or 9 extra days by the time testing rolls around, I think it's our responsibility to do so. So that's kind of what we're looking at and proposing. I'd be happy to answer questions that you might have floating around out there.
Questions this evening?
Well, it wasn't nearly as exciting as live streaming,
I apologize.
but I do appreciate the extra days of professional development in the beginning of the school year. I think that'll be well utilized. So thank you.
I have plans for it already. So
I'm sure you do.
That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to hearing of the public. Here's an opportunity to address the board with anything that's on the agenda or anything else that you would like to speak to us about.
Thank you, Mr. Vaca. We have now turned on the ability for participants to unmute your microphone. If they would like to address the board, you may unmute your microphone and do so. All righty, it looks like we're ready to turn it right back over to you, Mr. Vaca. Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. All right, we'll move right into the consent agenda. Education report, Ms. Tamira.
We have 2 items to consider under the education report. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the 2021-2022 school calendar. The second item is a contract with Insight Behavioral Consulting to provide specialized services for students who demonstrate a need. Consideration for approval will be at the February 16th regular meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Tamira. Is there any questions in regards to the education report? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to policy committee report. Ms. McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, board, we have a first reading of new and revised set of policies that are hosted by Neola. The board has reviewed, the policy committee has reviewed and made edits to the policies listed below. The second reading and consideration for approval will be at the February 16th regular board meeting.
Any questions in regards to the policy committee report?
Can we have copies of those policies, or are they just already on Neola's website?
No, they won't be on our docs until they're changed. So I thought Hanaya's sent those, but maybe not.
You're in the Friday number? I didn't get them.
No, yeah, well, yes, you definitely can, yes.
Move on to communications report. Ms. Yetsey?
Thank you. It's recommended that the Board of Education accept the following gifts of appreciation. We received $50 donated by the Hensley family to the high school band. We received a gently used trumpet donated by the Hardy family to the donated to Ranger High Tech Academy Music Department to be used for students in need of an instrument. 75 football jerseys were donated by the North Ridgeville Athletic Boosters to the middle school football team. We received $1,500 donated by the North Ridgeville Lions Club Educational Outreach Program to be used for virtual field trips for our students. We received track suit warm-ups donated by the North Ridgeville Track Boosters to the North Ridgeville Schools Tracks team. $76.94 was donated by Ashley Meese through the Charities Aid Foundation of America to the North Ridgeville High School. And as always, we thank our community for their support of our schools. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Yetsey. Is there any questions in regards to the communications report? All right, under the buildings and operations report, we have 2 items to consider. The first is to advertise for bids to repave the east parking lot of the high school, as well as the access drive off of Bainbridge Road. Second, we have an agreement with Burgess and Nyepel Engineers to provide specifications in a bid package along with construction phase services for the repaving projects just mentioned. This is the first reading for these items. The second reading and consideration for approval will be at the February 16th regular meeting. Is there any questions in regards to the buildings and operations report?
The access off the access drive off of Bainbridge Road, is that the one that is to the east of where Wilcox was?
I believe so. Mr. Younger, can you confirm that, please?
Yes, that is the half circle where Wilcox was that now connects to the large high school parking lot and exits the Bainbridge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to human resources report, Ms. Saxon.
Yes, we have a number of items in the human resources report. 8 supplemental contracts, 8 non-NREA supplemental contracts, 1 support staff substitute, 4 unpaid volunteer coach recognitions, 3 certified staff adjustments, 1 certified staff leave of absence, 1 support staff leave of absence, 1 support staff resignation. This is the first reading for these items. The second reading and consideration for approval will be at the February 16th regular meeting. This concludes the human resources report.
Thank you, Ms. Saxon. Is there any questions in regards to the human resources report? Moving to the education report, Ms. Tamira.
We have one item to consider. The 2021-2022 North Ridgeville High School Program of Studies has been prepared for adoption. This program of studies has minor changes, updating the course descriptions to reflect the new curriculum changes and updates. I move to approve the education report item in 1 reading.
Second. Is there any discussion in regards to the high school program of studies?
Quick question. I know that Mr. Rochon was talking about broadcast journalism. Is that something, if we decide to move forward, we can make an amendment to the program of studies?
But that course actually already exists at the high school. It's just a matter of the enrollment to run it. So it is a course that we have run in the past. It is not running currently this school year.
Thank you.
Questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tamira?
Yes.
Mr. Vaca?
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey?
Yeah.
Mrs. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon?
Yes.
All right, moving to human resources, Ms. Saxon.
Yes, we have 3 items to consider under the human resources report. 1 support staff appointment, 1 resolution to approve a student for the student employment program, and 1 support staff adjustment. I move to approve the human resources items in 1 reading.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Saxon, second by Ms. McCarthy. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Saxon,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. Tamira,
Yes.
Mr. Vaca.
Yes. It is recommended that the Board of Education enter into executive session to discuss the purchase or sale of property for school district purposes and the sale of property at competitive bidding, since disclosure at this time would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to persons whose personal interests are adverse to the general public interest. There will be no action to follow.
Move.
Second.
Moved by Ms. McCarthy, second by Ms. Tamira. Roll call, please.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. Tamira,
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon,
Yes.
Mr. Vaca.
Yes.
Okay, recording is going.
Okay, it is recommended that the Board of Education adjourn this regular meeting.
Move.
Moved by Ms. Tamira, second by Ms. Yetsey. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tamira,
Yes.
Mrs. Yetsey,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. Saxon,
Yes.
Mr. Vaca.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
The adjournment.